Hi, Scott Morris, and this is the third and final part of my little, mini-series of videos here on warming up and practicing fundamental techniques based on my book, Classical Guitar Complete. It's volume 1. And the first two parts, I covered arpeggios, focusing on play relaxed technique, focusing on hand position, talking about Moretti arpeggios as well as Giuliani and all the other things to think about while practicing arpeggios. Then I did a brief introduction to scale practice, talked about everything from shifting to synchronization, speed bursts, dotted rhythms, rhythmic variations. And this last part here, what I'm going to talk about, slurs, left-hand slurs, talk a little bit about contrary motion exercises and strumming techniques, as well as maybe a little recommendation list here for some other books besides mine that I really like for practicing different exercises with different spins on things. Believe it or not, there are other books other than mine. I'll be the first to admit it. Okay, so let's talk about slurs first. What I'd like to do is first talk about hammer-ons, or what classical guitar players refer to as ascending slurs. In chapter 8 of my book, which starts with scales, it's called Scales and Slurs, on page 88, it's exercise 8.20. I give you a real simple little slur exercise, and this one's just on the first string here. The idea there. So just a simple little open one hammer on with repetitions. Then we do a little 1-2 hammer on with repetitions. 2-3, then 3-4, and then you go through all the different combinations there. So 1-3, 2-4, and 1-4. Okay, so what do you think about when you're practicing these exercises? Because the thing I always like to really emphasize to guitar players is never do an exercise where you don't know exactly what it is you're focusing on, and you always want to have sort of a checklist of things that you're trying to get better at. So don't just do the exercise and try to get through it really, really fast. So in this case, what we're looking for is a really clean slur. I'm also trying to keep my hand in position here. Practice the ones that are most difficult. So if you have a real problem, a lot of people do, with anything involving the pinky, but maybe like a 3-4 or 2-4, practice those more. I always say practice the ones that give you more trouble, because that's how you get better. So this first exercise again. Okay, and I also recommend practice it in different parts of the guitar. So on and so forth there. Practice it, all over the place, because it feels different to do a hammer-on up here in 9th position than it does down here in 1st position. So don't just play it in the one position here, but move it all over the fretboard. Now, descending slurs, or pull-offs, they're a little bit more complicated than the hammer-ons. Descending slurs, a lot of people haven't quite thought about those in the right way. Probably because pull-off is a really bad word for them. Because you're not just lifting your finger up like that. You can hear that doesn't get you much of a sound there. The way you want to think about these is actually plucking with the left hand. Right, as opposed to, you really hear that there. So the exercise in the book is 8.21. And you could go through all the different strings, different parts of the fretboard, just like that. But practice all the combinations. 4-3, 3-2, 2-1, 4-1, 4-2, and 3-1, all over the place. Nice and slow. Make sure you're relaxing after each pull off. And then we move into the last one here. So this one here is a combination. So it's a triplet. So hammer on, then to the pull off. Hammer on to the pull off. Right? And those are great because it's both. Kind of killing two birds with one stone here. You know, if you want to get creative with these, you know, I don't know, maybe bring shifting into. I like to change it up, you know, make up little exercises. But again, you know, do it all over the fretboard. So that there. Now the other thing most people don't do when they're practicing slurs is I actually like to practice diatonic scales as slur exercises. So you might take something like, you know, G major. I like to practice. Right? And what's tricky about that is if I'm trying to keep that 16th note kind of groups of four thing, like 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E. Right? Hammer-ons and pull-offs there. It's really tough because most people will go, right? Instead of sounding all wacky and lopsided there. So do it with a metronome and those are real fun because you can really get those burning there. So practicing your diatonic scales. You know, in my book, I have the 5 scale patterns 1 through 5. Suggest you go through all of those in all different keys as part of your scale practice. You know, bring these slurs in, so you're kind of bringing a little bit more left-hand work into that there. A couple other things I'd like to mention as kind of rounding out your warm-up here. One is one of my all-time favorite exercises here. Right, some people call that, you know, the spider exercise or the crab or whatever, because, you know, it kind of looks, you know, lots of different variations on that there. But I'll just give you the basic one here that I learned as a student, and it's this. So, you know, 3 down on the 7th fret of the 4th string, 1 on the 5th fret of the 1st. Then you're going to prepare 2 and 4 to play a fret above on the 1st string and the 4th string. So it's going to sound like you went like this, but you're actually going like that. So there's a finger exchange. Now watch what I do with 1 and 3 right after 2 and 4 get to their respective frets. I immediately prepare that, and then 2 and 4 prepare that. So it's going to sound like, but you're playing. And you can do it backwards. So what are you practicing here with this, besides finger preparation, because that's obvious? You're practicing contrary motion. You're practicing these fingers going that way and preparing. Some people do these to really emphasize those, you know, relaxations in between. I like to do them legato. Maybe, you know, arpeggiato, it's kind of fun. Move it around. Invert it. Just making stuff up, but, you know, you can have a ton of fun with that one, and, you know, it looks real cool. You know, you get those fingers kind of going in all different directions. You know, amaze your friends. You know, take your guitar out at a party and do one of those. A couple other little things, and then I'll wrap this up. I really think it's important to practice, you know, strumming techniques. You know, the reason is, you know, even if you're not playing any music where you actually have to, you know, strum like a flamenco guitarist, there's a reason why flamenco guitar players tend to have really good, you know, tremolo and really good scales, you know, things like that, is because by practicing that motion, that here, they're utilizing these muscles here, we call these extensor muscles. And when you develop those, they're easier to relax quickly, which means, you know, that thing we talked about in the first part of this little video series here, where you relax your hand really quick like that, is even easier because you can relax in between the notes. The fastest players, they don't move their fingers the fastest, they relax their fingers the fastest. And that's one of the things to keep in mind. So practicing, you know, strumming techniques, you know, all different kinds, you know, is a really great way to kind of like warm up the hand there. So, you know, a couple other little things I'd just like to mention here. Obviously, Scott Tennant's book, Pumping Nylon, has a fantastic part, the daily warm-up routine, which I highly recommend you do. As well as, you know, a nice little book by Robin Hill. It's The Guitarist Gymnasium that I really like. It's very, you know, well laid out. Just exercises and little etudes that kind of emphasize those exercises there. Ricardo Isniola's Pathway to Virtuosity, kind of an intense book there, really regimented, laid out, but you know, at a certain point in my development, it was just the right thing. You know, all sorts of different things. I might also mention, after you do your warm-ups, maybe having some etudes to practice to kind of transition into playing actual music. So, you know, etudes are a great way to also work on important techniques before you start, you know, playing, you know, the Aranjuez or something like that. So I hope you found this helpful. The part 1 and part 2 of this as well, just on warming up. And, you know, whatever, you know, level you do it, or, you know, if you spend 2 hours, 3 hours on it, or if you spend 20 minutes a day on it, you know, the important thing is to try to balance it out, be consistent, and practice what you're bad at. That's how you get better. I'll see you in future videos. Bye.